allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On the agenda tonight, we were scurrying around in the front because we're going to take a short break after the third proclamation, because we found out from our engineers that we have to do a formal resolution regarding one of the items later in the agenda. So at the end of the proclamation, we'll take a little break before the study session.
Very good.
Okay. Approval of the minutes, the April 3rd meeting. The motion.
Support.
Is there questions or additions to the minutes of April 3rd? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Now we have the good things, the special orders of the day. The first is a Park and Rec Board Citizen Recognition Award. Mark?
Sure. Leonard, front and center, sir. Leonard is the father, not great-grandfather, not godfather, of our disc golf course, right? Courses, true. And so I know you have dedicated a lot of time and a lot of effort over the years to build it, right? You were the builder and the designer in 2006, and the Park and Rec Board and the City Commission want to recognize you for all that hard work. So this is a certificate of appreciation and recognition of your commitment and dedication to the North End Riverside Park Disc Golf Course. Thank you. So the floor is yours if you'd like to.
No, I just really want to thank Heather Bowman and Mark here for all their support that they've given to all of us that enjoy the park and disc golfing out there. The numbers grow weekly and daily. It's just awesome. Yeah, thanks very much.
Big Rapids was called Leonard once. Was that related to your family?
I don't think it was, but maybe way back. I don't know back.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Next, Mark, for GFWC.
GFWC.
Our guest is Linda Telfer.
So this is a proclamation declaring April 24, 2023 as GFWC Federation Day. And I'm going to read it even though it's long because this has some great stuff in it as I read through it. So, whereas GFWC Big Rapids is a member of the General Federation of Women's Clubs, and its members have enhanced the citizens and community of Big Rapids and the surrounding communities for more than 50 years through their commitment to volunteer service, which include maintenance of the Riverwalk and Post Office Gardens, Anna Howard Shaw presentations, reading programs at the Big Rapids Community Library and elementary schools, artworks, Our Brothers Keepers Shelter, Children's Foster Care Suitcase Program, WISE, Project Starburst, Food Pantry, the Open Arm Child Advocacy Center, Recycle of Mecosta County, Mecosta County Area Chamber of Commerce, both men and women's veterans, and various national organizations that help meet the needs of children and families in the United States and abroad. And whereas in just 2022, the members of GFWC Big Rapids provided over $13,000 in direct donations and over $10,000 in in-kind donations, as well as 3,319 volunteer hours for projects benefiting our local community. And whereas GFWC Big Rapids and its member clubs in all 50 states and more than a dozen countries are at the forefront of grassroots community service, providing crucial support to arts and culture, cultural education and libraries, health and wellness, civic engagement and outreach, environment and legislative issues of importance to women, children, and families throughout the world. Therefore, be it resolved that Big Rapids Mayor Fred Gunther calls on the citizens of Big Rapids to recognize April 24, 2023 as GFWC Federation Day. There we go.
On behalf of GFWC, it's a pleasure to serve this community, and you'll see us more and more out and about. We're working with the city, as Heather probably knows. We're trying to get new street signs, bigger ones, especially for the main roads, and we're working on some gardens at the library that people can plant vegetables in.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going, Heather? Going along good?
Yeah.
Next,
Okay.
for our library.
All right. All right. This is a proclamation recognizing April 23rd through the 29th, 2023 as National Library Week. You want to read?
No, I just wanted to see if you're doing it.
You know how to read? All right. Yeah, if I miss something. Whereas libraries provide the opportunity for everyone to pursue their passions and engage in lifelong learning, allowing them to live their best life. And whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions for all members of the community regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, and socioeconomic status, and whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equity of access for all, and whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing needs of their communities, continuously, I messed that up.
It's okay.
Yeah, well, no, it's spelled wrong.
Continually.
Continuously, expanding their collections, services, and partnerships, and whereas libraries play a critical role in the economic vitality of communities by providing internet and technology access, literacy skills, and support for job seekers, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. Whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that promote a sense of local connection, advancing understanding, civic engagement, and shared community goals. And whereas libraries are cornerstones of democracy, promoting the free exchange of information and ideals for all. Whereas librarians and library workers are joining library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Fred Gunther, Mayor of the City of Big Rapids, proclaim April 23rd through the 29th, 2023 as National Library Week.
Yay.
There we go.
I would just like to say on behalf of the library, thank you to the city and the commissioners for their continued support and for all of the people that are using the library in the community.
Heather, do you need more time? No. We're all done. We don't need a break.
No.
Fine, let's go with the next agenda item under study session. Scott Hall is going to talk to us about the wastewater system improvements.
Thank you, Heather and Tammy, for the last minute scrambling there. Apologize for the paperwork there on that one. Have it all in order here. I'm with me today, Kennedy Coxon. She's one of our engineers here helping me out on the job. We're here today to talk about the Clean Water State Revolving Fund project plan. So this will be for the wastewater system. We'll be back in about a month's time to do a similar exercise for the water system, the drinking water system. But tonight it's about the wastewater facilities, the need for improvements, and this public meeting and presentation here is a requirement of the funding agency to submit the application for funding. So what we'll talk about here tonight is go through a little bit of the project background, talk about the need for the project, kind of walk you guys through a little bit of some of the need for critical infrastructure upgrades, talk about the different alternatives we looked at to address those needs, discuss the overall recommended alternative, and then kind of quick give an overview of the environmental review process, which is one of the requirements for federal funds, as well as look at projected costs and how those costs may impact the city. Briefly cover project delivery methods and go over the anticipated schedule and kind of the overall SRF process. I know when we were here last time we kind of give a quick overview of it, but we can give kind of a refresher of how that whole timeline will work. And then at that point, we can open it up to any Q&A from either members of the council or the public. Changing on my screen.
Oh, God. You're going to do this too, aren't you? I'm the wrong person to be up here helping, by the way. Does anybody have any bright ideas?
You can take it out of the slide.
Well, they have the handout. Need one? It changes on his screen, Mayor. I will verify that.
We can always do it on that screen.
Turn it on, turn it back off again. Sorry about that.
Oh, Mark. There we go.
All right. Okay, we're back in business. All right. So just a quick overview of the service area, the wastewater service area, primarily the city of Big Rapids, as well as small portions of Green Township and Big Rapids Township. As part of the project, we looked at population projections, looking at kind of the future, kind of 20-year outlook for the community. This graph here shows the historical population for the past couple decades, and then the multicolored lines are the projections for future populations. Most of the trends are slightly downward, but kind of chatting with Mark and some other members that the 2020 census data may be a bit skewed from COVID. So looking at more of a conservative projection of that kind of light blue line there, maintaining the current population of around 10,000 to 12,000 at that 20-year ultimate population. What that means for wastewater flows, about 7,000 REUs, or residential equivalent units, so about 7,000 homes approximately. Right now the facility gets about 1 million gallons per day, is about what they see at the facility. So kind of expanding that out with the population projections, looking at about 1.2 MGD, which is well within the design capacity of the existing facility. Kind of why are we here? What's the need for the project? Primarily, a lot of it is just aging infrastructure. Staff has done what they can to keep up with the equipment. It's really just equipment that's been installed as late as the 70s that's still in service and has kind of reached its useful life, and is time to start planning for replacements. Kind of that 20-year outlook. So aging infrastructure is one of the main driving factors. The other item is kind of along the aging infrastructure, outdated control systems. Most of the plant monitoring system is from the late 90s. A couple updates in the early 2000s, but as far as computers go, that's pretty old. And then treatment process optimization. There's certain processes at the plant that are doing well in meeting permit limits, but are cumbersome to operate and cause a lot of maintenance and operator involvement that could be remedied when we look at updating some of the existing infrastructure. So we're talking a little bit here and let some of the pictures show some of this stuff here, but this is need for the project. This is a Novak lift station installed in 1974. Some of the mechanical and electrical equipment has been updated over the years, but a lot of the mechanical process piping, these hatches you can see, the structure itself is not adequate for the configuration. So this station is in need for a full replacement. A little bit different, but that Tioga Park, there's a pump there that is under capacity and runs a lot more than it needs to, causing excessive wear. and maintenance there. This is the east screw pump, and as you can see on the right-hand side, the white one there, the west screw pump replacement that was just completed about a year ago now. And so now the east screw pump is from early 2000s, so 2001, 2002 vintage. So certainly past its useful life and has been experiencing some failures in the past that have caused emergency repairs. But it is functional, but kind of at that end of its useful life there. So we have the Vortex Grit system. This was installed in the mid-90s, so kind of coming up on that 30-year time frame. This equipment takes out all the sand and rocks at the plant, which can affect the downstream pumps and equipment. So really this equipment is still functional, but I think what you're saying, Dave, every other month or so you have to go and update that grit pump and replace some wear parts and unclog a pump that is routinely clogging and causing some maintenance trouble there. Moving through the plant process, these are on the left here is an aeration system blower, and these blowers provide air to the treatment process to help biodegrade the wastewater. The blowers were installed in 2009, so they're getting up to that 14, 15-year age mark, and we kind of think of maximum usually 20 years for some of this mechanical equipment. But there's also some operational challenges involving foaming, and that can be pretty hard to handle at the plant. So there's different blower technologies that could be more efficient and easier to operate, as well as addressing that aging infrastructure. Similarly, the digester blowers, so this handles all the solids at the plant. They add air to the solids to further treat those. And those blowers were also installed in 2009 and are kind of getting near that useful life. And the digesters are probably one of the biggest energy consumers at the facility. These are very large blowers. And in the last 15 years, there's been some advancement in blower technology that could be beneficial to look at for process optimization, energy savings, updating that infrastructure. Staying on the sludge solid handling process side of things, this piece of equipment here in the center is used to thicken the sludge from the process, or the biosolids. So the city pays for every gallon of sludge that's removed from the plant, and this takes it from about 1 or 2% solids up to 5%. So really concentrates that volume and ends up saving costs down the line. This piece of infrastructure is again from the mid-90s, so kind of coming up on that 30-year number, and becoming more increasingly challenging to find replacement parts for pieces of equipment such as this. So, and the last one here is the SCADA system, or essentially the monitoring system, the control monitoring system at the plant. This is kind of the brains of the whole plant. Let the operators see what's going on at all times, alarm notifications, all of that. So really a critical piece of operating the facility. And over the years, it's a computer. So over the years, it's become outdated, and different people have had their hands on it over the past 20 years. And so looking at kind of revamping the system and updating that operator control and monitoring. So the main objectives here for the SRF project, we want to provide consistent, reliable service, minimize operating costs through improved treatment methods, repair and rehabilitate high priority areas of the treatment plant, minimize the financial burden to sewer system users. That's kind of been the driving factor behind this project. The city has done a great job of kind of doing projects year over year, but as capital costs for projects have continued to decline, and that need continues to stack up, looking at how to best finance that is kind of the driver for going after this funding resource. And then minimizing the financial or the environmental impact, of both the construction project and the treatment plant operations and discharge.
Then when we look at developing alternatives for the CWSRF project, there are a few that the project plan requires you to look at. So for the alternative number one, that's a no action alternative. This is one of the ones they require you to look at, and that would basically mean doing nothing at the wastewater treatment plant. Second is the regionalization. So is it possible to send the wastewater to another plant around the area? Third is optimize the performance of the existing system, and then alternative number four is addressing all of the things that we just mentioned. So action number one, this would involve no construction project and obviously not addressing any of the needs that we saw in the pictures before. And for that reason, all of the project objectives don't really get addressed with this alternative. And then that second alternative was regionalization. So for that, looking at two facilities that are close to the area. The first one was Reed City, which is over 19 miles away, and then Mount Pleasant, which is over 42 miles away, and just looking at that cost-wise, just the conveyance of that itself is over the budget for this project itself. So that did not meet the project objectives either, especially keeping it low cost if we were to the city.
This is another one that's a requirement of the program that we look at regional alternatives. It's pretty common for like a smaller community, maybe on the outskirts of like a Detroit or something, and if they have a sewer system that's totally failing, it doesn't make sense to rebuild them when you connect to a larger facility. In the city's case, the treatment plant itself is in overall good condition. There's just components that need to be upgraded. So mothballing it and going somewhere else and having to expand their facility is really not feasible.
And then this is another one to look at for the requirements of the project plan is optimum performance of the existing system. So this would be the daily operations and keeping up with everyday operation. The reason this doesn't address the project plan is we aren't addressing the failing or the outdated infrastructure. Those can't be done with just everyday maintenance.
So look at different operational strategies. Could we run the system differently to avoid those components and avoid replacing them? But really, with the criticality of some of these assets, replacement is really the only option.
And then the final alternative was that rehabilitation and replacement of existing facilities. So that would address the two lift stations that we saw in the first one, replacement, full replacement of the first one, and pump replacement, that e-screw replacement, the grit vortex system upgrades, addressing the aeration blowers and the digester blowers, and sludge thickening equipment and piping, and those SCADA systems.
So the alternative 4 is kind of the only feasible alternative for the project, and just kind of have to demonstrate that that's the best course of action. So those are the recommended alternative, is to complete the replacement of the existing assets. And these are just some examples of what some of these improvements might look like. This is actually an example of the North State lift station that was redone a couple of years ago, but replacing Novak with a similar style station, or one that's maybe more below grade and not as obvious in the front yard location that it's at.
My front yard.
Your front yard. So you'll have to pick what you want to do there. This is e-screw pump. It's one of probably the oldest pump technologies in wastewater, but it is efficient and very reliable. So the last project was very successful. So looking at just kind of matching that existing pump with the new style. This is a picture of the grit system that helps the sand and rocks come out of the wastewater. Actually, on the right there, the water spins around in that circle, and the sand and rocks drop to the bottom, and then they're pumped out into this piece of equipment that removes that from the wastewater stream, and the clean water goes back into the process. The challenge of the existing equipment is this bottom piece here no longer rotates properly, and it can end up plugging up in the bottom, and all that debris builds up, and they can't pump out that rock and material from the wastewater. blowers, these supply all the process air for the biological treatment process. So both the aeration tanks and the digesters use a similar style blower, and these are really the heart and soul of the treatment process at the plant, and also are the biggest energy consumers. So looking at the most efficient technology to replace that with is a critical piece that we'll look into heavily during design, that have included funds to address the needs there. This is a picture of the sludge thickening equipment. This is probably similar to what they have at the other end here, but there's multiple different technologies that can be used to remove the water from the solids that are in the process. So there's different types of melt filters. There's a filter mat that helps the water and solids separate, or a similar style to a rotating drum that does the same process. And then the SCADA system. So the SCADA control, again, it's monitoring the facility. You can see what pumps and blowers are running, what speed they're running at, what flow is being pumped around, all from a central location. If an operator gets an alarm at 2 a.m., they can see it on their phone and they know, oh, this pump shut off, but the backup pump started, so I don't have to go in for the emergency overtime call. Or the level in the tank is still okay, I can address it in the morning. So a very critical tool for plant operations. So this is a breakdown of the overall project costs, kind of the different components we went through broken out here, with a total construction cost of about $4.4 million. There's a construction contingency, kind of undeveloped details, of about $800,000, and then engineering, design, construction administration, and grant administration, bond counsel, around $880,000 as well. So the total project cost that would be financed through the loan would be about $6.2 million. Obviously, it's a substantial project cost and a little bit different way of thinking instead of doing projects year over year, but these are all needs in the next 5 years that are going to become pretty critical. So this is the net present worth analysis. So the state asks us to look at the total project cost over a 20-year period. And the main line here is the annual operations and maintenance. And we take 20 years of that to get the $21 million. So that's the total present worth of $27 million. And then any salvage value from existing, new pipes or equipment that still has life at the end of 20 years comes back out of that. With this process and the improvements, the goal would be to maximize, energy efficiency. But the projections are looking at kind of maintaining that baseline O&M, so not increasing any costs if we can avoid it, and trying to find energy savings where feasible. This next slide here is part of the SRF requirement is talking about the impacts to user rates, and this is a much more complicated topic than I'm going to present here tonight, but essentially they look at what is the potential impact to users, and this is looking at it, as an engineer we're looking at it purely just on a numbers basis of financing the $6.17 million over 20 years at the current interest rate, which is 1.875. And what it comes out to is about $13 to $15 per quarter per REU. So that's 7,000 REUs we talked about earlier. The total loan payment divided by that many users, it's spread out. It's about $13 to $15 a quarter. But there's a lot of variables that go into that. City's already setting aside some money that could go into this, as well as a debt payment that's coming off the books in a couple of years as well. So as this process kind of moves forward and the terms of the loan come out and potential principal forgiveness, I'm sure the city will be meeting with a municipal financial advisor, kind of evaluating the best way to finance this project. And so after we compiled this whole project plan, it was about a 50 or 60 page document and another 70 pages of appendices that has been on display here, and that'll be submitted to the state by May 1st for the deadline. And then the state will collect all the communities that submit for funding and score those based on the compliance schedule, risk of public health, water quality, improving the public infrastructure, and affordability or disadvantaged community, overburdened community. And they'll compile all those and then rank all the projects in the state. That's the project priority list that'll come out later this fall. And then they kind of go down the list, and all the funds that they have to allocate, they go on the scoring list and start distributing those funds. So the goal is to find out, hopefully, early September, October, if the city qualifies for funding and what are the terms of the loan and potential grant or principal forgiveness that we may be eligible for. So submitting the application doesn't commit the city to any project or any size project. If the loan rates come back unacceptable, we can modify the project to fit the city's goals. The last component that we have to talk about as part of this is the environmental review. As part of the project plan, we have to look at all the potential different impacts and a bunch of different databases that we had to research to see if there's any environmental impacts that this project may have. All of them are on existing facilities, and if anything, it will be improving the environment, so no long-term significant impacts are anticipated. Sometimes if you have a green site and you're going new development, there can be some challenges there. So environmental mitigation, there's temporary general construction impacts, dust, noise, soil erosion, sedimentation control, pretty standard environmental mitigations throughout the project. The SRF program allows multiple different project delivery methods. So the project plan kind of outlines those. The standard one is the general contractor design, bid, build. It's a conventional project delivery that everyone's familiar with. The other ones listed here are similar to how we did Hemlock Park project, so the progressive design build, and no decision has to be made on how this gets delivered until we get closer down to the actual project design. So this just kind of leaves all the options open for the city at this moment. Just a quick anticipated schedule on how if this were all to move forward. Submit the final project plan in May. As I mentioned, they would score all the projects by September or October. And then once we kind of get a handle on what the financing terms are and how the city wants to proceed, we could potentially start design this fall, kind of October, November range. And then it would be designed and permitted by May of 24. And then we bid it out and close on the loan in fall of 24, and approximately 2 years or so for construction. So start the process in 23 and get up and running by end of 26, early 27. So these planning processes, they do take a long time here. So that's the overall process. And then, as Heather and I scrambled together here before you, there is a resolution on the docket, essentially just saying that you guys have reviewed the project plan and that the city is adopting the recommended alternative to proceed with a funding application for the recommended improvements of the $6.1 million project. So with that, we can open up to any questions. Yeah.
Just
Anyone? Commissioner?
a point of clarification. It says public hearing. However, if we don't have a public hearing.
It should be public meeting.
Okay.
If the public meeting is
All right, as long as
yeah.
that gets updated here. Okay.
Reed City got a huge new water treatment plant. Is that a grant from the prior years, or what is that? I mean, it was tens of millions.
I'm not sure what program they went through, but I believe they did do SRF, the state revolving fund.
I think
so, yes, I think that was true.
How many
Same
millions?
program.
20?
I think it was 15.
15
I
million?
think, but I can double check that.
So there's a chance that we could get some grant money as well as just a low interest rate loan.
Correct. So this past year, fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 coming up here, are the 2 years that they're routing the ARPA funds that you've heard about in the news probably are being routed through this program. So it's an influx of money that they haven't previously had. So it's a good time to apply. I think a lot of communities, it is going to be competitive this year because everybody kind of saw some of the grants that were given out last year. So there are likely more applicants this year. But the city does potentially qualify as overburdened based on some of the financials, which helps you score higher and potentially get some of that principal forgiveness.
What's the capacity of our water treatment plant?
2.4 million gallons per day.
That's hydraulic.
Yep.
PFE for treatment.
Yeah, so biologically, it's probably more, depending on the strength of the wastewater, it's probably only closer to like 1.2 to 1.4.
But we do 1 million a day.
Yep.
So it's that close.
Mayor, there's always a worry. We go through a process every 5 years, I think, of permitting.
Loading study and permitting.
And
yeah.
permitting, where the state dictates what you treat for. And if they were to change that, that would impact how fast water can move through the system. So if you slow it down, our capacity drops. So it's kind of a moving number depending on what you're after to try and treat. Ammonia, as an example, has been one that has been trialed, I would say, at the plant. There's a thought that may be a standard we have to meet someday, and that dramatically changes how much water can flow through the plant in a reasonable amount of time. So, but in terms of water just moving through, given our current set of circumstances, it's more like 2 million. Yeah.
And we don't know exactly how much Goshen's plant would dump into the system.
We do not. No, we don't
Should
have
put a small asterisk on the population projections there.
That's
Certainly not known.
Other questions? Hearing none, we have a quick resolution preparation in front of the commissioners. Mark, you want to read that because nobody else has seen it. I think they deserve to hear it.
Happy to. So resolution adopting a final project planning document for wastewater system improvements, or MPS, pollution control, stormwater improvements, and designating an authorized project representative. Whereas the City of Big Rapids recognizes the need to make improvements to its existing wastewater treatment and collection system, and whereas the City of Big Rapids authorized Gleason Vandenbrink to prepare a project planning document which recommends the construction of improvements to the wastewater treatment plant and 2 lift stations, and whereas said project planning document was presented at a public meeting held on April 17, 2023 at 6:30 p.m., and all public comments have been considered and addressed. So we need to change hearing to meeting, Tammy. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Big Rapids formally adopts said project planning document and agrees to implement the selected alternative number 4, which is rehab and replacement of existing wastewater treatment plant facilities. And be it further resolved that the city manager, a position currently held by Mark Gifford, is designated as the authorized representative for all activities associated with the project referenced above, including the submittal of said project planning document as the first step in applying to the state of Michigan for a clean water revolving fund loan to assist in the implementation of the selected alternative.
Thank you, Mark. Further questions? Is there a motion for the resolution?
So moved.
Support. There's motion and support by all. And any further questions? Tammy?
Blackburn?
Yes.
Heffley?
Yes.
Dumpin?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to public comment not related to items on the agenda. Anyone? Everybody awake? next we'll go to, there are no public hearings. That doesn't have to be a hearing, right?
Correct.
Yes.
General business resolution, awarding a bid for the North Michigan parking lot. That's the farmers market parking lot, right?
True, thank you, Mayor. Yes, the parking lot is right out here, just in front of the Sherwin-Williams, just south of City Hall. The commission had allocated some funds last year to do downtown paving, which we have done some, and have about $90,000 left from that. And so this parking lot, given its use and condition, we targeted that for repavement, went out to bid and received 2 bids, one from Reith Riley and one from Bob's Asphalt and Paving. Reith Riley, low bidder of $105,500.70, and we're recommending awarding that bid to you this evening. And it is shy of the funding that we have directly available, but we will be able to make up the difference with some other funds that we've targeted. So that's what I have for you, Mayor.
Questions for paving the parking lot on its bid? Anyone? Commissioners? Anything? We hear a motion to accept the bid for paving the Michigan parking lot.
So moved. Support.
There's motion and support. Further questions? Tammy?
Epley?
Yes.
Stelter?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Next is my favorite pet project, the resolution approving the engineering of the Hills of Mitchell Creek Booster Station. I had the privilege of driving through there and talking to an owner at the top of the hill. Nice fellow, but you can't take a shower always, you know, it starts dripping out of the head. Then all of a sudden she bursts back on and the shower's good. I think there's a problem there. Mark?
Yes, we think there's a problem too, and Mayor, if it's okay with you, I'd ask Scott to recite the idea that we're trying to promote here to solve that problem. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we were here a couple months back, and essentially the issue is, again, there's 2 large pumps at the bottom of the hill that are intended to provide pressure to the system, and the challenge is there's no storage or buffer capacity, so when anybody turns their faucet on, pressure drops, and then the pump kicks on, but it's such a big pump that it meets the pressure real quick and it shuts right back off. So the pump is constantly cycling, trying to meet that pressure. It doesn't offer much usage up at the top of the hill for the users. So we did a study, probably just about a year and a half ago, we did a study looking at the alternatives. These will be further evaluated as we get into detailed design, but the concept would be to have 2 smaller duty pumps, almost a quarter of the size of the existing pumps, that would fill up a bladder tank or an air tank that's similar to like your well pump at a house almost, much larger scale, but similar concept. And that would provide the pressure for the usage, and as the pressure drops, those small pumps would just slowly refill the tank within an allowable working pressure. And then a single large fire pump would also be installed to provide fire protection at the top of the hill. So a lot of reconfiguring of the piping underground is probably needed to get that full flow up the hill, and potentially a building expansion to make it all fit. That's kind of the preliminary concept.
So, I'll jump back in real quick, Mayor. So we have a proposal from police to go through this design work. This also takes us through the construction phase, as I understand it, and will help through the bidding process as a total of $66,700. I know this is one we've talked about here a number of times, and it's something that it wasn't designed right to begin with. There's just no question about that. We've looked at whether it would be with Eric Williams. We talked to Brad about any repercussions that could go back towards the original developers, but it's such a fractured set of circumstances that legal opinion is that probably doesn't get us anywhere, unfortunately. So we're stuck with the problem. The folks there rely on our service. We've got a lot of firemen here with us tonight. I know this is something they've looked at and are very wise to as well. So it's something that we don't feel like we have any other options at this point in time. So that's why we're bringing it to
Questions, anyone, public, commissioners?
I have a question real quick. Is there an impact on the hydrants? I mean, from our recollection, we have good flow on hydrants up in that area. I know it's in Big Rapids Township.
We were told that they tried to do a fire test and ran out of pressure completely.
Yeah.
On the hydrant system.
Big Rapids Township connected,
Yeah.
and you guys know, I'll say stuff that isn't right here, but they connected their pumper to the hydrants, and the pumper was pumping faster than it was coming, and the whole system went dry, so to speak. And,
There's a big drop in pressure there. And
Yeah.
so as part of the design, we would look at, full fire flow of what it could produce at the top of the hill.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you guaranteeing engineering a project that will completely service every house when they're full in the hills of Mitchell Creek? Because we got goofed up by the last group.
It'd be a full build out for that whole.
Full build out. This fix is going to fix it. If everybody's there and there's a fire at the top of the hill. Get that right, Mark.
As long as the pumps are working. If a pump breaks, I can't.
The signed letter from Fleece, one of the two people who signed was a Wilcox.
Yeah.
Is that the same Wilcox who designed the system? Because it was designed by Wilcox and Wilcox out of Cadillac. It was Rick Johnson who's going to
different Wilcox, Mayor. Yep.
Different Wilcox?
Yeah. Different Wilcox.
We have the good one.
It's a major expense now for the city. You're anticipating $1 million. Is that getting close?
Approximately, yeah.
To fix what shouldn't have had to be fixed. Anything, Mark, else on that?
No,
I think there's one thing on the drinking water project plan that we're going to be presenting. Similar to the wastewater one, this project could be included in that funding application. So if you were to get drinking water funds, this design could be used in that overall project.
Can it reimburse back to if this is signed?
Yes.
Okay, so we're okay moving ahead with this, and if it got funded and we chose to go that direction, that's a nice alternative thought. Yeah.
Is there a motion for the hiring Fleece to do the engineering for the Hills of Mitchell Creek booster stations?
So moved.
Support.
Motion support. Questions further? Tammy?
Johnson?
Yes.
Simon?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes. Next is on our general business is resolution adopting an amended city-paid parental leave policy. Mark.
I think Melissa wrote the position paper and is going to tackle this one, Mayor.
All right.
So back in August of 2021, I had wrote a position paper and a policy back then that was intended for the non-bargaining group. We had tried it kind of as a trial thing to see, knowing that in the future we would look to come up with a policy or something that would affect all employee groups. So this was my attempt at revising the policy. What I did is I actually took the city of Kentwood and the city of Detroit's policies and kind of blended some things together. State of Michigan has 12 weeks of pay, but they're a very large employer. The city of Detroit, again, is a very large employer, as is the city of Kentwood is bigger than the city of Big Rapids. Both the city of Detroit and the city of Kentwood offer 6 weeks. So I took into consideration the size of the organization and kind of settled on 4. So that's what I'm proposing.
For both.
For all.
Both partners.
For all full-time employee groups. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Mayor, this is a little bit of an oddity in that it's sort of done different than we have done things in the past. So a lot of times policies would start with the non-bargaining staff a lot of times, and then we would look to negotiate them into union contracts. This one, the way it was adopted originally, it states all employees, and certainly is we want the employees to have it. It's never been anything different than that. But
this is here, number one, to make the hours represent what we think we can handle better, and to make it clear that it's not relying on union contract negotiating. It's applicable as soon as any time you adopt it to everyone who's working.
So it's presently 8 weeks.
It is.
And you're proposing a reduction to 4 weeks.
We are.
Commissioners?
Is that reduction to 4 weeks from a financial standpoint?
No, not financial so much, Commissioner, as it just is something when we have experienced its use, which has only been a couple times since its inception here, with a few of the non-bargaining staff. It's 2 months is a long time. Granted, any employee who has a child can have up to 12 weeks with FMLA, and certainly no effort here to stymie or fight that.
Without pay.
They would use leave.
For short-term
if they didn't have leave.
disability.
Yeah. So we just don't have a lot of redundancy in our departments. They're small, right? And as you look across other employee groups, their schedules are just very different. Firemen work 2 24-hour shifts back to back. So you could call it a 48-hour shift, but some don't want to call it that. So so is that, how does that work? Is it the same or different? And police officers work 12-hour shifts. The folks at the garage or at the water and wastewater plants work 7 days a week. It's just the nuances of those different types of work environments, frankly, and that we probably bit off maybe more than we could chew from the beginning, given the way our operations go. We just think, tailoring it backwards a little bit makes more sense. It is up to the commission, however you see fit, for us to roll this out. Commissioners?
We have the City of Grand Rapids paid parental leave policy in front of us. What did it say prior to what's in this packet? Did it say all employees before? Did it say? It's just hard to see a new policy without seeing what the old one was.
The first paragraph, I don't believe in the first paragraph, I believe the only thing that changed was from 8 to 4.
But this doesn't even spell out what type of employee.
If you look under eligibility, it does.
Okay.
You have to work so many hours, you have to be employed with the city for a certain period of time, and be a full-time regular employee. So it's excluding part-time, temporary, or seasonal employees, interns, etc.
Others? Questions? Mark, as what I did for a living, is take care of a lot of maternity cases. It seems that the 6-week guideline has served us really well with the healing of the mother and all those things, and that just sits better with me to make a compromise between the 4 and the 8 and go with 6, because that's traditionally the medical time frame of helping people who can't work for those reasons. That's just how I feel.
For a female employee, they're entitled to short-term disability, which would be in conjunction with. So,
but it's for parental leave. We're not just.
Correct.
So you want your partner to be there to support you as well. So there were no changes down when we talked about special considerations. There was nothing in that area that was added or removed or clarified.
The special consideration section, I believe, yes, that was all added.
The special considerations was added. So I remember voting on this and feeling pretty progressive and pretty good. And it just seems like we've moved a big step backwards, right, wrong, or indifferent, which to me this isn't. We're cutting 4 weeks out, and then we're adding a whole bunch of clauses and special considerations. I, for one, would like more time to review it and better understand where staff is coming from. because what I'm seeing in the packet and in front of me, I'm not hearing something that would justify taking 4 weeks away from someone, regardless of full-time, gender, bargaining, non-bargaining. It just doesn't sit well with me to vote on that at this time.
Please.
I would just like to
Can you say who you are first, Maureen?
Yes. My name's Lauren Tanner. I would like to comment on my past experience with not having a policy. My husband is a police officer, and when he first started with the city of Big Rapids, we came from a different agency to Big Rapids because they were progressive. They were looking out for their employees. And unfortunately, I became one of those statistics of postpartum depression. And when he first started, he didn't have a lot of time to take off. And so with our second child being due in September, the thought of having 8 weeks of uninterrupted time where I have to have a C-section again and someone to take care of me and our other son, that shows me that his employer cares about my mental health and his mental health and the well-being of our family, as well as even from a recruiting standpoint that sets the city apart, showing that we care. So I guess that's what I have my input is. I've had it where we didn't have anything, we didn't have any paid parental leave, and now this option of 8 weeks could be a huge blessing to our family. So
Thank you.
thank you.
It's without a doubt, you'd have to be pretty naive to think it's not a good recruiting tool. I mean, obviously. And sometimes we have trouble finding policemen and firemen, especially. Sean, please.
Sean Williamson, Big Rapids Fire Union, Local 1776. I'd like to thank the Commission for your progressive stance in the policy adoption in the first place. It is a big recruitment tool for our employees, and we are grateful for whatever your decision might be. I would just like a point of clarification, regardless of your decision, who the policy was intended for, whether it's full-time employees and meeting the certain hourly requirements, or it's just non-bargainers, and it needs to be negotiated in as well. So whenever your decision is made, we can get clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Others?
I just want to say,
please.
Casey Metcalf, one of the police officers, Commissioner Simon, I forwarded you the original policy for before the revised one, so you could compare it.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Could we all get that?
Do we all
Sure,
feel
I think we could for all of us to
do
have
we
that.
feel all that we need to study some more before we make a decision? Is that a?
Sooner rather than later, but yeah.
Then I won't entertain a motion for the resolution unless you all want to override me. So we're going to drop that one for further study. We don't need to table it. I don't think we don't make a resolution.
Okay.
But we have to make the decision probably in the next couple of weeks.
We can have it back on the agenda for the next meeting, Mayor, if that's something you're comfortable with.
I'm a compromiser. I'd be comfortable with a 6-week, but I don't think our group is ready to do that at all. So I think we should not propose it. Anyone else? Anybody else comments before we move on? Hearing none, we're going to move on to resolution placing the revision of the city charter on the ballot coming up. Tammy, why don't you talk about that a little bit? You talked about it earlier. And
Okay, we already adopted, well, actually, we have a first of 2 resolutions that we're going to adopt. This one here just says that the commission says, yes, we want to do a charter revision. The second one is going to say, yes, at the May 8th meeting is going to say, yes, we want one And this is what it's going to say, and it's going to be put on the November 7th ballot. And that opens up, this one here will open up for anybody who wants the petitions to come and get them out of my office.
This one?
This one here. So petitions will be ready, if you guys adopt this, petitions are ready tomorrow for pickup.
You all set with that all, Brad?
Yeah, this one's more aspirational as you want to do it, and then it opens up petitions. The next one would be approving the ballot language that would go on the ballot for the election.
All set, commissioners? I know everybody's thinking about it. Yeah. Questions from the public? Is there a motion?
Support.
There's one support for placing revision of the city charter on the ballot. It's been, I think they started studying 11 years ago. Took them a couple of years to get it done, and then they approved it in 2012. So we have to find volunteers from the community to be on that. City commissioners can't be on there. You have to be voting citizens. So, call the question, please.
Cochran?
We get motion.
You do that.
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Mayoral appointments. Mark's got a big list for us.
We have a great list, Mayor. On the Compensation Commission, Greg Schuin, appointed to a full term ending in May of 2028. On the Library Board, Sarah DeWitt Lucas, appointed to a full term ending in May of 2028. Zoning Board of Appeals, Amanda Frazier, appointed to a full term ending in May of 2025. Jane Johansson, reappointed to the ZBA, her term ending in 2026, and Mark Walton, reappointed as well on the same time frame, May of 2026. So it's great to have folks wanting to help out and lend their time and talents to our needs. I appreciate that.
Is there any reason we can't do those in one fell swoop, Amy?
Oh, shit, yes.
Even though they're different commissions and all?
Oh, no.
Okay, do I have a motion for those folks?
So moved.
Motion and support. Questions about any of those appointments? Karen?
Epley?
Yes.
Gunther?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
I love being introduced. Yes.
Unscheduled business for the commission that somebody wanted to bring up today? Anyone? Different than the meeting out at the Green Township Hall there, Stan.
Different than mine also. But I would like to thank you for going up to Hills Metro Creek and listening.
Well,
Up there.
he was cutting his grass or picking at the grass. I had to do it. Anyone? Any other business anyone has? All right. We stand adjourned. Thank you for coming, everyone.